We are so excited to have all of you here today to begin celebrating LGBTQ-RAN's 20th anniversary and 20 years of queering our roots, the theme of our month-long celebration. I'm Marnie Warner and the current chair of the board of directors. My journey to being involved in LGBTQ-RAN started with my being an author of the Open and Affirming Resolution and a delegate to the 1985 United Church of Christ General Synod, where O&A was passed. O&A was a resolution that challenged all UCC churches to adopt statements and policies that fully welcomed LGBT folks into their congregations. I met Mark Bowman at an O&A coalition meeting, and he encouraged me to tell my story of the passage of O&A as part of the LGBTQ-RAN Oral History Project, which I did do. Mark dreamed about bringing people together who had advocated for LGBTQ folks in multiple nations. I was on the planning committee as the UCC representative. That plan resulted in Rolling the Stone Away, a conference that was held in St. Louis in 2017 with over 250 people participating. It was a great event of young people, middle people in terms of what they were doing for LGBT folks, and the pioneers who had led us that way. In 2020, I agreed to come on the board of directors as LGBTQ-RAN was hoping to become a nonprofit and an independent organization. Little did I know that 18 months later, LGBTQ-RAN would become a 501c3. We would hold 9 listening circles to listen to 50 of our core constituents about what we were doing well, what needed to change, and what could be future activities. It was great. We had people from all over the country and the world. We also have implemented almost monthly webinars of emerging scholars on LGBTQ issues. And finally, we come to today. We decided to celebrate the last 20 years of history of what has now become LGBTQ-RAN. So the plan for the next hour or so is to show a video so you can hear the words of the people who've made LGBTQ-RAN what it is today. You'll hear about the upcoming events in our month-long celebration. You'll learn about a challenge we have for making LGBTQ-RAN more financially stable into the future. And finally, we have an opportunity to meet each other in the peer interest groups, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. I'm going to hand the baton over to Irene so you can see a video on how did LGBTQ-RAN come to be.
Thank you, Marnie, and please give me a second to share the video.
Hello, congratulations to Mark and Carl and Doris and other staff for taking a good idea and making it an extremely useful resource for generations to come. Thank you for stalwart creativity. LGBTQ-RAN is the creation of new knowledge, which empowers.
What was groundbreaking about LGBTQ-RAN was that it was queer religious people who were doing the preserving and documenting of our own history, and doing so online.
There are now more than 350 collections in our collections catalog, and that number grows every week.
LGBTQ-RAN was an early innovator in creating online exhibits. LGBTQ-RAN is ensuring that future historians remember and recount our legacy. I have had a lifelong fascination with history. I have no formal credentials in history, but from a young age read historical accounts and biographies and took a number of history classes through my years of school. In the mid-1990s, I was directing the United Methodist Reconciling Movement. The board was doing strategic planning, and the facilitator hung a timeline on the wall and asked us to record events and people that had led us up to our present day. So I wrote down the names of my mentors: Paul Abels, Michael Collins, Joan Clark. I was shocked when most of the people in the room said, "Who are these persons?" Not even a generation had passed and our LGBTQ Methodist forebears had been forgotten. So I resolved that someday, in some way, I would ensure that our history would be captured and remembered. In the year 2000, I was in the midst of vocational transition and recalled that earlier resolve. Living in Chicago, I approached Chicago Theological Seminary, known at the time for including LGBTQ studies in its curriculum. After a series of meetings with leaders there, we agreed to explore establishing an archives at the school. I secured a small grant to study some options for doing this and spent some months talking about this with a variety of LGBTQ religious scholars, historians, archivists, and activists. Responses from these conversations were, number one, yes, it's now time for an organized and concerted effort to record our history. And secondly, we don't need another physical repository. What we do need is a way to locate collections that are scattered around in different archives.
When I look back at the almost 20 years since I began work with LGBTQ-RAN, I'm reminded of how ahead of the curve the project was from the very beginning. Few archives even had all of their own finding aids on their website, and it was still a dream that a researcher could go to one search platform and search for collections across a number of archives.
I asked several scholars, archivists, and activists, Mary Hunt, Rebecca Alpert, Ken Rao, Joanne Brown, Jim Anderson, Bill Johnson, Frank Zerilli, Gordon Melton, to serve on an advisory team to shape this venture. They all said yes, which confirmed to me that the time to act had come.
From a technical perspective, the catalogs and histories and biographies and exhibits on the LGBTQ-RAN website weren't really unique or unusually difficult to do. There were other people on the web at the time who were creating the same kind of material. Instead, what was groundbreaking about LGBTQ-RAN was that it was queer religious people who were doing the preserving and documenting of our own history, and doing so online. We were adding ourselves to the record and to the public conversation, instead of depending upon often hostile cultural institutions to do so for us.
I only traveled occasionally to Hyde Park for staff meetings, but I attended ceremonies for the winners of the LGBTQ History Award, and I had the opportunity to meet members of the advisory board. These advisors were inspiring elders. They were the activists who had helped make the history that I was working to preserve.
Early questions we asked included how would we get people, many of whom were in dire danger, with significant consequences ahead for being out. They were in danger for putting themselves in the public arena. Religious groups in those days, and some still today, were rather unforgiving. Was it ever ethical to ask our queer siblings to make themselves vulnerable for all eternity? Some of the early people who were profiled became better known, more visible in death than they were in life. That's a public service, a form of justice making that the network engages in.
My job at LGBTQ-RAN was to create a collection catalog from which researchers could find collections pertinent to our topic. Another aspect of my role at LGBTQ-RAN was to encourage donors and advise them on how to donate their records. I was grateful that by the 2000s, archives across the country had really welcomed LGBTQ collections, and they were actively seeking to document the history of LGBTQ movements.
Our intention from the onset was to be inclusive of all before deciding on Religious Archives Network. While religious wasn't perfect, it best described our intent to be expansive. Amazing personnel have stepped up to propel this project forward. I asked a friend who worked in IT to help get the Archives Network off the ground. I quickly learned that Carl Foote is a technological wizard who could transform my ideas and images into electronic realities. Plus, he has a passion for our history. So much of LGBTQ-RAN's success over these 20 years is attributable to Carl's brilliant design and maintenance of our website.
It was a fortunate time for a project like LGBTQ-RAN. In the early 2000s, there was little information online about queer people, not much about religious life, and virtually nothing about living in both worlds. Interest in the public internet was exploding, and Google's approach to searching websites had really kicked in. We simply had to publish ourselves on a website, and people would find us. One lighthearted example from the era is that, aside from some salacious stories and fantasies, for a time the only factual information online about lesbian nuns was an oral history we had posted on our website. Just one page for the entire web. Needless to say, that page got a lot of attention for a while, and Google's algorithm was happy to let the entire world know it was there. I still think it's a significant accomplishment that, for a while, hundreds of thousands of people typed in lesbian nuns for all possible reasons and were sent to a website full of proud, queer, activist religious people, including a nun.
Our next venture was to collect biographical information. Our ever-expanding profiles gallery is the most visited part of our website. A Google search on the name of an LGBTQ religious activist usually lists the LGBTQ-RAN profile at the top of the search findings. And these profiles of our leaders have provided a valuable constituency and community to support our work.
I never thought about the internet being a location where you really could explore deeply questions that hadn't been looked at before and bring together pictures and ideas and thoughts and really make a museum online. I recommend that anybody who hasn't clicked on the exhibits page on the LGBTQ-RAN site to do so right now, because what you'll find there are amazing stories that aren't often told, that really reveal the importance of what Mark and his colleagues have done and continue to do.
I honestly can't imagine work that is more fun and more fulfilling than this. I have been blessed to hear and read so many stories of courage and suffering and redemption. You can find all these on our website.
Every time I use the network website, whether for research or for teaching, I realize how little I know about the heroic and inspiring people in our field. I want to know more. Whoever imagined that we were so many, that we were so diverse, and who knew that we were so bold and so committed for so long? Thanks to the network, we know, we'll continue to know, and that energy will enliven us and generations to come in perpetuity. Thanks so very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Asati, and I am the Communications Coordinator with LGBTQ-RAN. I would like to first take a moment to respectfully acknowledge the traditional and ancestral territory of the Native peoples on which we reside. We are so absolutely excited for the upcoming events, and we hope that you will join us. LGBTQ-RAN would not exist if not for the work of the activists and leaders who helped to pave the way and those who are continuing to make good trouble. Over the next several weeks, we will be honoring some of the many elders of the community. We will be hosting our elder conversations beginning on October 6th through November 3rd, 2 p.m. Eastern. That is also 1 p.m. Central and 11 a.m. Pacific. Each conversation will be between an elder and a young activist, and they will discuss the parallels of their work, and they share the stories of the then and now. The first of our series, beginning on October 6th, will be with lesbian feminist Presbyterian minister, the Reverend Dr. Jane Spar Adams, and queer ordained minister of the Presbyterian Church, the Reverend Ananda Barclay. On October 13th, we will have theologian, scholar, and free thinker who identifies as a Black trans man, Reverend Jonathan Thunderwood, and founder of the Activist Theology Project, Robin Henderson Espinoza, PhD. On October 20th, we will have preeminent Jewish lesbian feminist thinker and writer Evelyn Torton-Beck, PhD, and assistant professor and author Zohar Wyman-Kelman, PhD. On October 27th, We will have Administrator and Senior Bishop of the Unity Fellowship Church Movement, Bishop Zachary Jones, along with third-year PhD student, the Reverend Paul Anthony Daniels. And we will be honoring posthumously the former prelate of the Unity Fellowship Church Movement, Archbishop Carl Bean. And to complete our series on November 3rd, we will be joined with the founder of Metropolitan Community Churches, the Reverend Elder Dr. Troy Perry, and psychotherapist and author Matthias Roberts. Be sure to RSVP for one or all of our conversations in the series. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Lastly, we will celebrate in a major way with our 20-year Queering Our Roots Anniversary Gala. Be sure to save the date for this event, which will be held on November 7th. And if you would like to RSVP for this event or any of other events that we will be hosting, you will find a link in the chat to where you can visit our website, lgbtqreligiousarchives.org. And you will also find information where you can help us celebrate our anniversary through our Queering Our Roots website, located on our website as well. Thank you all so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. It was a great video and such wonderful opportunities to celebrate our elders in the coming weeks. I'm Rick Peterson, treasurer of the LGBTQ board. And I want to add my thanks to you for joining today. We are pleased to have this special time to remember a little about the religious movements advocating for justice in the LGBTQ community, as well as to celebrate the rich histories that LGBTQ-RAN has collected over the last 20 years. As the board was planning these anniversary events, we were clear that we remember the past, but in order to guide us into the future. As we celebrate all that LGBTQ-RAN has accomplished in the past 20 years, we also want to empower the continuation of this historical work. We have set an auspicious challenge for our 20th anniversary. We want to raise $20,000 to help us lay the foundation for the next 20 years. I'm pleased to report that we are actually pretty well along our way in achieving this challenge. As of this morning, we have raised $7,770, nearly $8,000 to help us in this effort. That's a whole bunch of sevens, and I've heard that sevens give you luck or something like that. In any event, I consider that amount remarkable. In addition, we have 17 sponsors and 5 allies supporting Queering Our Roots, with more coming in daily. That's just tremendous. Thank you so much for your support. I'm inviting you now, each one of you, to join with these generous friends to help us move forward to this bold and audacious $20,000 challenge goal. Giving is easy. There are several ways. You can type giveq.org on your phone or computer. Wait a second, and you can direct your gift into our special Queering Our Roots campaign. It really works. I tried it. You can use the QR code found on the screen. I suspect most of you know how to use QR codes, but for Luddites like me, this is how you do it. Open the camera app on your iPhone. Point your iPhone at the QR code to scan it, then tap the pop-up banner on the QR icon to open it. It should open easily. Or you can go to the LGBTQ-RAN homepage and hit donate. It's one of the first things you'll find. In addition, and I feel like this is but wait, there's more situation. We are incredibly fortunate that an anonymous donor has come forward to match any and all Queering Our Roots contributions made, up to $20,000. That's amazing. And furthermore, this is another, but wait, there's even more type of situation. Another incredibly generous benefactor, Ellie Charlton, has made a special contribution specifically to celebrate and to incentivize first-time donors to LGBTQ-RAN. First-time gifts to LGBTQ-RAN will receive an additional match. That means that contributions from first-time donors will be tripled. Your gift for $25 will become $75. Your contribution for $100 will become $300. As many of you know, it's remarkable how much LGBTQ-RAN accomplishes on its very small budget. The board and the incredible LGBTQ-RAN staff are committed to ensuring that our collective legacy will be passed on for future generations. Will you please help us make this happen by giving as generous a gift as you can to LGBTQ-RAN today? Thank you for your generous support. Now Marnie will explain our peer interest breakout groups. Marnie, take it away.
All right, this is your opportunity to get to know each other or some of each other. The way this is going to happen is Sadi's going to put up a slide of the breakout rooms. And hopefully that slide will allow you to find out which room number you're in. And then you can join that room. Now, there is a new group that's called the Unicorn Room, which is basically for anybody who doesn't resonate with one of the topics above. So find out which room looks best to you. And then you should find the breakout room symbol on your screen. No, we're on multiple devices, so you need to look at your screen. The breakout room screen is usually 4 squares. And if you click on that, you should get a list of what rooms to join, and you should be able to just click on the number of the room that you want. If all else fails, just either put in chat what your room number is, and Sadi and Irene will get you to your right room. And if that, stay online and we'll interact with you one-on-one. Anyways, the point of this is find your way to the breakout room, have some wonderful informal conversations with each other, and we'll be back in about 30 minutes.
What interesting discussions we had in our group. The unicorns always will offer some thoughts that are outside of the regular stream of thoughts. So sorry to break up these discussions, but we need to honor your time. Again, just a reminder that we have set a bold and audacious $20,000 challenge goal for this Queering Our Roots campaign. We are working hard to achieve this challenge goal and maybe even more to ensure the future of this great organization and the critical work it does. We've made giving as easy as possible. Don't forget that all gifts will be matched and that the gifts of first-time donors will be matched yet again. So they will be tripled. So please, please give generously. And now I return the floor to our esteemed board chair, Marnie Warner. Thank you.
So I have lots of thanks to do. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming today. But on behalf of all of us, I want to thank Mark, Carl, and Doris for 20 years of being creative and persistent and making LGBT what it is today. And we can all clap you, but we're muted, but a round of applause for all of the work they've done. I also want to thank the peer group host today for participating and helping us with this conversation. Our group is actually great and came up with a good idea, which is going to be passed along. So I'm glad it worked out. And also to thank you for the work that you're doing daily to advance LGBT folks in whatever arena you're at. And finally, I want to thank Sadi and Irene, who are the technical masterminds about being able to have today even happen. I mean, to just think that we're spread across the country, we're on multiple devices, nothing looks the same to each of us, and yet we were able to have a shared experience. So we need to thank them for their behind the scenes hours of work to make today happen. Another round of applause, thank you. So now I'm going to ask you to take out your calendars and line out the next 5 Wednesdays and at least attend 1 or 2 of the intergenerational conversations. We want to honor these folks and we want to have people there to hear what they're currently thinking and doing. So please think about that. And also do join us on the gala on November 7th. It'll be a great time to just sort of round out a month-long activity. So that's my part for today. I will say there are going to be a couple of slides and for finishing closing. And then if you want to go back to the breakout rooms, you have the ability to do that. Again, thank you for coming and making this an event that hopefully you've met some people, learned something, and will continue to be involved in the LGBTQ-RAN community.